You're listening to the REITE Club podcast, where the focus is all about helping you grow your real estate investment portfolio and live the life you want to live. Come grow with us and join our community at thereiteclub.com. And now your hosts, Sarah Larby and Alfonso Salemi.
Best thing I ever created was this really cool info product very early on. It was called How to Survive and Thrive Without a Job. I think I might have told you the story. It was hugely wanted, massive amount of demand. The people didn't have a job, and they had to choose between food and shelter and Maslow's pyramid of needs. Buying an info product to help them was not really top of their food chain at the time. So, you know, that was a mistake I made early on. So you learn, hopefully, from other people's mistakes. And that's really what, that's what you sort of look for. You look for the intersection.
Yeah.
Now the tools.
So
I was going to say, yeah.
I mean, you've got, tons of great ideas, and I do want to go into the tools. And I think that was kind of, where I was going to ask you the next question is more into the how, right?
Yeah.
So you got this great idea, you've tested that there is some, demand or some pain somewhere that you can make something better. And you've got your topic. What's the next step after that you would recommend somebody do?
Okay. So I put my hands up for a reason. You get 10 fingers. Bear that in mind.
So for those people that are listening only, yes, 10, I guess that means 10 things to do.
Yes. So one of the things about creating anything is, and you learn this when you're developing software, you learn this when you're trying to solve problems for clients, success lies in boundaries. Success lies in limits. If you do not put a limit on something, it has a tendency to keep going and going and going, otherwise known in the development world as scope creep. And you will never finish or succeed because, well, you just won't. There's no end in sight. So what you've got to do is you have to start with the end. In other words, you need to know that there's a limit on this. So one of the things I teach is that I'm not going to teach you how to create a magnum opus. I'm not going to teach you how to create this massive life work. I'm going to teach you how to create what I call a short course, a course that's usually a couple of hours long. I tie this back to the simple theory that nobody wants your course, they want the answer. Okay, how long could they tolerate going through your material without kind of losing their focus or their attention? Well, I call this my gluteus maximus rule, which relates to the big muscle on which you sit. It's your butt. And if your butt cannot tolerate it, your brain will kick it out. This is why classes in school are 45 minutes to 90 minutes in length. This is why movies are usually a couple of hours long. That's why people started to complain with Lord of the Rings, because it broke the gluteus maximus rule. I mean, you sit through it, well, maybe you wouldn't, you'd hit pause, then you'd go for a stroll and come back. 3 hours is a bit too much, at least in one sitting. So I tend to focus on 90 to 120 minutes. In other words, a couple hours. So there's that. The other thing that you need to bear in mind is that, and they've done these studies, and teaching like you learned in university or school, you have got to erase that idea, because most people think that's how teaching works. That's not the same. When you're dealing with adults, they're only really interested in an efficient consumption of the information to get to the transformation. That means that when you look at how fast people's attention wanes, you need to bear that in mind. So if you're thinking of creating video-based courses, the data shows that somewhere around 7 minutes, attention starts to drift, and it falls off the cliff at around 10 minutes. So unless you are absolutely a genius at holding people's attention, and that's not to say you can't, you need to be thinking 10 minutes is sort of the threshold of something. If you're going to teach for a video, then you want to be thinking about 10 minutes. If your video needs to be 20 or 30 minutes, break it up, okay? Chunk it. Now, the reason I put my fingers up in the air and I said 10 is because my Coursepreneur approach, my approach for creating courses is I look at that and I go 10. Nonfiction books tend to have 10 chapters. There's a reason for that. We have all of these things chopped up into 10. It's usually enough for you to digest a significant amount of information and fix some problem. Now, if you think that your course is broken up into 10 video lectures, those might be grouped into modules or whatever. That's just logical grouping. But if you think 10 videos, each video is about 10 minutes long, you're looking at 100 minutes. That's just shy of 2 hours. That's consumable. It's also creatable. And the other thing that I also try and sort of tell people when they start to go, but that's what do I talk about? How do I create this? What tools do I use? Well, I say, look, if you've got a fairly new smartphone, you have more than enough to create. In fact, I tested this a while back, a few years back. So we're talking, actually, I did this with an old iPhone 6, not even a sexy new one. This is an iPhone 6. I actually thought to myself, let's see if I can create an entire course just using an iPhone and nothing else. Yeah, it's doable. It's not necessarily the best of the best, but it's sold. So it's not about the technology, it's about the information, the transformation, right? So when you're looking at creating these videos, you want to be looking at the questions and answers that you would be going to go through to solve that problem. And people say, well, what do I teach? And I say, well, look, if you understand what the problem is, I absolutely guarantee you know what the questions are. Usually it'll be like, for instance, let's use the whole idea of how do I create an online course? I get asked things like, how long should my course be? I just explained that. So that was one episode, that's one lecture. And they say, what technology do I need to use? I say, well, you need to use something that can do at least very high definition, which is 720. But you really need 1080, and the newer phones can do that. One of the questions that I get asked is, what kind of tricks and tips with cameras and video? And I say, really, the trick is keep the camera still, put yourself more or less to the center. I mean, you could sit off to the left or to the right, but keep yourself roughly in the center. And the trick to good video is good audio. Make sure you've got enough light, but more than anything, make sure you've got good audio. People will tolerate, grainy film, but if they can't hear you, then you lose them. So the secret to good, video is good audio. People say, well, how long do my lessons need to be? Well, I explain that. Drop-off's around 7 minutes, so keep it around 10. The next question is, well, how much content is that in a 10-minute video? Well, if you're speaking at typical North American speech rate, which is about 150 words a minute, you're looking at approximately 1,000 to 1,500 words. That's about 2 to 3 pages of single page, is it single or double? I don't know. It's not a lot. And if you're trying to talk about answering some problem, then 10 minutes goes by really fast. So you're not going to have a hard time filling it up. And by the way, the reason I say 10 is because what you do is actually a dozen. You have your 10 lessons, and then you have your intro and your outro, and that gives you 12. And if you actually look at that, you're just under 12, you're just under 2 hours at that point. And that's, break it apart, don't overthink it. Some of the other things I suggest people do, and this is how you can really speed up course creation, because people think, I need to have it all figured out. And I say, no, you don't. You just need to answer the question, film you answering the question, just answer them all, and then you can put it together in post-production. Some of the tricks: never make reference to another episode or lesson in the lesson you're filming. Don't ever say, and in the next episode, you are toast. Because if you ever decide to add another episode in, or take one out, or change it, you can't. So make everything standalone. By the way, that also comes in very handy for when you want to market it, because then you can sprinkle the pixie dust and use those individual videos as completely standalone social media, and so on and so forth. So there's a few things.
This is fantastic information. This is incredible knowledge that you're sharing. Like, I've been YouTubing, obviously we've engaged, and we've talked a little bit as well too, creating this stuff. Sarah has walked through it, and just like anything, if you want to learn about something, you have to learn from someone that has typically walked that path, right? That has done that, made the mistakes, learned that, right? Wrote articles at a young age, creating that content, creating that information, and making it relevant. I love how you distill it and put it down to solving the problem. And much of why we co-host these podcasts and have these podcasts is to help people find solutions for whatever those issues are, mostly around real estate, how to find money, how to find deals, how to find clients, all that kind of stuff. That's good people to work with your team, right? And it's through experience in these conversations.
Thanks for listening to the REITE Club podcast and joining our community of real estate investors online at thereiteclub.com, where the focus is about helping you grow. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks from your hosts, Sarah Larby and Alfonso Salemi.